Kia ora, Internet. This is going to be a day to do just a quick little project. Ages ago, I was inspired to cut a whole bunch of 2.5-inch squares out of some of my scraps because my scraps were getting a bit unmanageable. And then I, over the course of several projects, started using those 2.5-inch squares as leaders and enders, and I just, every time I got to the end of a bunch of chain sewing, I would sew two of my 2.5-inch squares together pretty much at random, and then once all the 2.5-inch squares were in pairs, I turned them into 4 patches and then 16 patches, all while still just treating them as leaders and enders. So I've now got a lovely big pile of 16 patches. I'm not quite sure how many squares I've got here. I just kept going until I ran out, but I think there should be enough to make a small quilt if I combine them with another fabric. And I found this fabric, which, because I don't use this kind of colour very often, I think should contrast really nicely with all of the squares in these blocks, and should make for quite an interesting quilt, I think, and should be pretty quick to make. I've been playing around with layouts, and I think I want to alternate the 16 patches with the background so that I get a checkerboard of checkerboards. I've got 16 blocks, but I'm going to need either 15 or 17 to get a good layout. Luckily, since I originally made those 16 patches, I've accumulated quite a few more scraps, so I think I've got more than enough 2.5-inch squares to make an extra block. Even with making that extra block, that was pretty fast. I think I want to add a border of background fabric just to make the quilt a bit bigger, and it's also going to give the effect of the blocks floating on the background. Then I'll get it basted and ready to quilt. Anytime I have lots of little blocks like this, I can't resist an orange peel quilt design. It's just so easy to do, but looks really effective. And to add a bit of contrast, in the background blocks I'm going to do some really angular ruler work. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with this border, so I think I'll start off with more ruler work and just make diamonds all the way around, and then see if I feel inspired with how to fill them in. There's a lot of angles, so I think I need to put some curves back into this. So I'm going to add a spiral inside each diamond. And of course, a scrappy quilt needs a scrappy binding. So I'm just going to sew all of these binding scraps together and see what I end up with. Well, for a quick wee quilt made up of leaders and enders, I think that turned out pretty well. I am glad I added that extra border because that just made all the difference, I think. And I've still got loads of those 2.5-inch squares left because I keep cutting them out of all my scraps. So there might be another quilt like this in my future. Maybe I'll do something different with that one. Don't forget to do all those nice internety things like liking and subscribing and leave a comment. And I will see you next time. Ka kite anō, Internet.